welcome to tonight's candidate forum. I'll start by explaining some procedures of the forum, which each candidate has received and agreed upon. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. And we selected the order of candidates randomly. Then we will move into questions. There are questions that have already been created by the League of Women Voters of the towns that are sponsoring tonight's forum, and we hope that if any of you have questions, you will submit them. Questions that you submit must be addressed to all candidates and should apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. Opening statements.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight at the Harvey Wheeler Center for this forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters. Before I begin, though, I would like to thank our representative, Corey Atkins, for many years of service to our communities. For those of you who may not know me, though, my name is Benjamin Blumenthal, and yes, I am one of the candidates for state representative here in the 14th Middlesex district, which includes the communities of Acton, Concord, Carlisle, and Chelmsford. Tonight, you will have an opportunity to hear from us, the candidates, on the issues that matter to you the most. It is my hope that after tonight's forum, that you will have a better sense of which candidate can do the best for you and be your voice up on Beacon Hill. With that said, thank you very much, and let's start.
My name is Tammy Gouveia, and I am a progressive Democrat running for the 14th Middlesex district seat. On the campaign trail and in my 15-year career as a public health social worker, I've heard stories from hundreds of families. Stories about parents who are really struggling with their children who have passed away due to the opioid crisis, spouses who are struggling to find affordable medical care to take care of a loved one, and stories of young people who are angry and incredibly sad about the news after every mass shooting. But it doesn't have to be this way. Imagine if we made the investments that everybody needed to thrive. Imagine if we put our resources to make sure that every child had clean air to breathe, safe neighborhoods to live in, and schools that were engaging. I want to do more than just imagine. I want to be your state representative to bring your voice to the State House because I believe that we can work together to solve the problems that our state faces. I look forward to your support. I'm Tammy Gouveia. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian Kruger. I'm 24. I've lived in Concord my whole life, was born in Emerson. I've been here ever since. I'm running because I think it's vital that we have representatives who have dealt with our systems that frequently have flaws. Right now, I've personally experienced everything that's been wrong with our school system. I've experienced not getting a proper school lunch because our family didn't have enough money for it. I have experienced, well, right now actually, a week ago, I've been experiencing what it's like to deal with a family that the major breadwinner has just been laid off. So now we're dealing with everyone's favorite systems, unemployment and mass health. And those two things desperately need work. So I'm running to be your voice, engaging actively in the systems that we're trying to build to support the people of our Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
If elected, what 3 bills will you introduce?
If elected, the 3 bills I would introduce is supporting single-payer health care. I don't think it should be negotiated, that people have to choose between affording medical care that they need for themselves and for their family and paying other bills. The second bill I would file has to do with climate change. I agree with the comprehensive climate bill that was filed by the Senate that includes carbon pricing, expansion of solar panels, greening our economy, and moving to expansion of a whole host of things around energy conservation. The third bill I would file has to do with housing and transportation. I hear countless stories from constituents or from members of the district about how difficult it is to get from their home to their work, to get their kids to school, to go to a baseball game, to get into the city of Boston for a variety of reasons. We have a failing transportation system. We need to increase access to the hours that the trains operate, dependable and reliable departure and arrival times, and opportunities for people to be able to bike and walk to and from school and work in a manner that is safe. Thank you.
Well, you don't want to take it, but also I would like to introduce a bill to make it so that way We get free lunch for all public school students in Massachusetts because it's never a kid's fault if they're hungry. I would work to help reintroduce the Safe Communities Act, because apparently we're not getting that done this year. And I also want to make it so that way we have the important climate infrastructure that we need in order to make sure that we are going to be resilient for the huge storms coming forward. You know, we're going to be dealing with more frequent massive storms. If you all remember that tornado that recently hit Concord, that hit my house, ripped the power box right out our wall. And we need to be prepared for events like that, you know, extreme weather. Now, we're lucky in Concord, because we have great public works, that we got power back almost instantly. But there are plenty of parts of Massachusetts which are not prepared for these extreme weather events. And we need to work to make sure that we're resilient towards them. Thank you.
So the very first priority that I would attack, if you want to call it that, is issuing a bond bill to reduce the $7.3 billion backlog in state of good repair projects for the MBTA. Our reliability needs it. The second bill that I would file would be revising our Chapter 70 funding for public education. The foundation bill, the foundation budget, is what is the key to all of our public schools financing, and we need to ensure that we don't rely on Prop 2.5 overrides as a means to balance our budgets within our public schools. And finally, the third piece of legislation I would pass is passing the Safe Communities Act. Yesterday, just yesterday alone, I was in Burlington at a protest outside the ICE facility because I view that we need to protect our undocumented immigrants, and we need to do more than just stand on the sidelines as legislators, should I be fortunate enough to be elected. Thank you.
What specific ideas do you have about improving transportation?
In addition to reinvesting in our commuter rail system, which is by pretty much every metric failing pretty hard, I also want to increase bus service to a lot of parts of Massachusetts, and I want to look towards integrating the future of automated cars into our system. So right now, it's very difficult to get, you know, customized service, but in the years to come, you know, 20 years from now, we could have a system that has automated cars going to various people's homes, making sure that, you know, the elderly can get to their doctor's appointments, making sure that people who can't afford a car can get to work. You know, we can have a reactive, integrated public transit system that uses automatic electric cars that are energy friendly. And it's this beautiful future that we really need to be looking towards, because the opportunity for it is much, much closer than a lot of people think.
So, as somebody who works in transportation for a living, I can tell you that we have a $7.3 billion backlog in state of good repair projects, meaning that in order to bring our transportation system up to a state of reliability, we need to invest $7.3 billion in today's money in order to make our transportation system reliable. The way that we go about doing that is, as I said earlier, is I would work with the legislature to ensure that we put forward a bond bill or a bill for a bond that would help contribute to that funding. We are not investing enough in our transportation system, and as a result, you are seeing these breakdowns, you are seeing these failures, and you are being discouraged from taking public transportation into work. That is the first thing that I would do, along with other issues like advancing diesel multiple units, which are certain types of locomotives that would allow a single coach, a single car, and a locomotive to travel back and forth. And we could reintroduce this or introduce this on the Fairmount line, which has a lot of congestion and lack of service. Thank you.
So as I already said in my introduction, it really shouldn't be so hard to get from home to work or to get your kids to school or to enjoy a night out on the town. When people are stuck on buses and trains, they're not spending time with their families, they're not cooking a healthy meal, they're not exercising, and they're not able to volunteer in their communities. I've been a commuter for over 20 years, going in and out of Boston off and on throughout my career. And I know what it means to be stuck on the train, not at home with my children, not reading to them, and not cooking them a healthy meal. Throughout the district, as I already said, I've heard frustrations over and over again. I've heard about the desire to have public transportation in Carlisle, to support seniors in getting to medical appointments and to get out to hang out with other seniors. I've heard of people in my own town in Acton who love the Crosstown Connect, but would love for more frequent stops so that their kids can enjoy after-school activities. It's really critically important that we find ways to fund transportation so that we are getting people off the roadways. We have a mindset right now that public transportation ought to cover its own costs. I argue that that is the wrong formula. We should be flipping that and investing in our public transportation and getting people to find ways to get off the roads and onto trains and onto buses. Thank you.
Massachusetts has one of the highest levels of income inequality in the country. What should the legislature do to address underlying causes?
We had a solution for income inequality, and that was struck down by the SJC not too long ago. Working with the legislature, I would introduce a progressive tax to tax individuals who make over $1 million a year in salary. I feel that by introducing that along with the passage which just took place of $15 an hour minimum wage, along with paid family and medical leave, would help lessen the burden for working class families and would provide additional revenue in terms of bringing it back into individuals' pockets. Thank you.
We are living with past legacies and past decisions that keep our community segregated not only by race but also by income. And these extreme inequalities make it extremely difficult for people, young people, people who have just graduated from college to be able to make ends meet and to be able to get access to the kind of education program that they deserve. I have advocated for things such as paid family leave, earned sick time, and increasing minimum wage. And I would argue that what we really need is a living wage. It's great that we passed minimum wage, but we need more than that in order for people to be able to afford to live in this state. All across this district, I hear about young people who are nervous that they're not going to be able to go back to the community that they lived in and grew up in. I hear of seniors who are fearful that they won't be able to stay in their housing and be near their grandkids, watching them grow in the community that they supported while they were going through their adult years. I will fight to ensure that we have access to health care, because that is also another way to really level the playing field. If we pass Medicare for all, in addition to all of the other policies that we have already passed. And we also need to support our unions, because as union busting has increased, our middle class has been squandered. Thank you.
Income inequality is about more than just what you have in terms of money and income. It's about what that money can afford. Transportation, healthcare, that sort of thing. By making single-payer healthcare, we can make it so people can get preventative medicine that prevents huge expenses down the line. By improving our public transportation and making it accessible to everyone, we can make it so everyone can get to a good job without having to buy and pay for a car all the time. These sorts of infrastructure improvements, like making sure that schooling isn't funded by local property taxes, is exactly the sort of thing that can take the edge off of income inequality. And of course, also, we do have to increase the taxes on those who make the most in order to help pay for these things. Thank you very much.
If elected, what would you do differently to ensure the next time around the Safe Community Act passes?
I want my kids to be safe, and I want everybody's kids in this community and in our state to be safe. I am a parent of young children, and I would do anything in my power to make sure that they were safe and that they had access to quality of life. My heart breaks for the families who are faced with these really untenable choices to trek all the way across multiple countries to get to the border to seek asylum. But I would challenge us to also recognize that family separation is happening right here in our state. I have advocated in support of the safe communities both at the local level. I testified before the Board of Selectmen in Acton, and I also provided testimony at the State House in support of the Safe Communities Act. So I have a proven record of supporting this policy already, and I would do everything in my power to work with other stakeholders and coalitions throughout the state to get this policy passed, because it makes us all safer by making sure that people who are undocumented and who are here just trying to create a life for their families, that they are safe. Thank you.
I would say in order to make sure that it actually gets passed this time, we really need to get tactical about how we're going to pass this legislation. There are plenty of places in Massachusetts filled with people who are sympathetic to the needs of undocumented immigrants. And we need to go to those places and make sure that the people are actively contacting their legislators and saying, hey, we care about these people. They're real people. They work hard, they contribute to our tax base, they deserve to be here. We need to make it easier for them to get in. And so in order to make sure that this passes, we take them, we convince them to get active, to call their legislators, and to get those legislators to move on the bill. Because I believe that there is the political will to get this passed within our state. It's just a matter of activating it and getting it into the State House.
Having stood outside the ICE facility in Burlington, Massachusetts yesterday, I saw firsthand the devastation that happens in our own backyard when it comes to undocumented immigrants and their families. The solution to this issue is that we need to put more pressure on Speaker DeLeo and the leadership of the House in order to pass the Safe Communities Act. Should I be fortunate enough to be elected, this will be the first issue that I will take up on Beacon Hill, because I feel that it is so important that we show that immigrant communities are welcome in the Commonwealth. Individuals who come from different backgrounds are welcome in the Commonwealth, and we need to stand up to the Trump administration and the Baker administration, who have done nothing to help these individuals and to help these communities. Thank you.
What are the revenue sources that you can see or would recommend to implement some of the initiatives you support?
Well, okay, good. In addition to the millionaire's tax, which I think is extremely beneficial to actually getting all of this stuff funded, I think we need to rework a lot of how our things are paid for, and we need to bring them up to the state level. For example, when it comes to schools, I think that by having the funding go up to the state and then to come back down, we can make it more equitable and then free up some money that's perhaps redundant in certain areas that makes it so that way, here in Concord, we get this giant, beautiful new school, and then over in a poor part of Massachusetts, they get a building that's been bad since the 80s. Additionally, I've explored looking into getting rid of the inventory tax. The inventory tax is a tax on retailers, which actively taxes their standing inventory at a rate of about $2.63 for every $1,000 worth of inventory. This has kept us from having warehousing in Massachusetts because they just put it across the state line and then they bust in their inventory. So if we get rid of that tax, we could bring inventory jobs back to Massachusetts right in the center where there's a solid home for them, where there's good union jobs, and the income that we would get from their income taxes is worth more than the about $6 or so million that we get annually from that tax.
So in terms of revenue, what we need to start looking at is increasing the income tax. I will go out on a limb and say that since 1993, we have seen a precipitous decline in the revenues coming into the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Added with the costs of additional services that go on here in the Commonwealth, we do not have the funding sources in order to maintain and move forward here in Massachusetts. Additionally, I would look at trying to get our bond rating back up to a AA+ rating, because under Governor Charlie Baker, we have squandered that AA+ bond rating and it's slipped back down to its AA rating, which means that we pay more in terms of interest on bond issuances, which are used for paying for our infrastructure here in the Commonwealth. And lastly, I would close corporate tax loopholes, similar to the ones that have been offered to GE, which have not produced a lot of good things here within the Commonwealth. Those areas, along with others, I would look at in terms of increasing revenue, closing tax loopholes, and that's how I would do so. Thank you.
I've heard from voters all across the district just how grateful many of us are to live in this state. We have a wonderful state where people have made the commitment to invest in each other and really truly care about each other in this state. And we are a people who see that our successes are wrapped up in the successes of our neighbors and our neighbors' children. That is why I support progressive taxation, to make sure that we aren't asking more of people who could be giving more. There are plenty of people who are making millions of dollars a year that we could be taxing at a higher rate. And it's not fair to be asking those who have so little to be giving so much more. I think it also is important for us to take a look at corporate tax loopholes and ensuring that when companies come here and make a promise to provide living and good jobs for the residents of our Commonwealth, that they are living up to that promise that they made. And we need to be focusing and tracking whether or not they are indeed living up to those promises. We also need to be going after opportunities like disruptive technologies, Airbnb and Uber, and making sure that we're taxing those as well. And also taxing polluters at a much higher rate, which not only is good for revenue, but also good for the future of our environment. Thank you.
Next question, can you tell us how you're funding your campaign, please?
So as a state employee for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I cannot go out and solicit a single dime for my own campaign. I'm running this campaign through a grassroots organization. I do have a treasurer, I do have a fundraiser. However, everything that we do it in the means on a shoestring budget. We do it in the way that Bernie Sanders has done it, by going out door to door, speaking to voter, and listening to the people who are out there and hearing about their concerns. To me, the best equity that I can build is not through funding my campaign through my own personal wallet. It's not through soliciting donations. It's actually going out and speaking to voters like you and hearing what concerns that you have in the community. That's why we've been very adamant about being out there in the field, knocking on doors, checking in with folks, because that's how we will fund our campaign, through voters like you.
I am funding my campaign through solicitations of many people in this room who are supporting my campaign, in all honesty. I've also solicited people I know throughout my career and throughout my life. I have a lot of people who have seen in me the ability to be a legislator and to be a strong voice on behalf of voters in our district. And that's why people support me in this race. They see the value that I can bring, the expertise, the experience, the passion, and the commitment. I'm also out and now knocking on doors since February, holding meet and greets throughout the district, and have been talking with voters out on the street at community events so that I can get to know what you care about. What are the issues that matter most to you and your family? What are you worried about? What are your hopes and dreams, and what can we work on together to build a stronger Commonwealth? I thank you very much, and I look forward to answering even more questions about this.
I'm funding my campaign, barely. The first thing they tell you when you start running is to make a list of everyone you know and then call them and ask for money. And everyone I know is a broke college student. So I've been looking, as I have through my entire life, for a way to do something expensive with almost no money at all. And that has involved going and knocking on doors and reaching out to people directly and asking them what matters to them. Virtually all my donations have been because someone has met me, they've been impressed with how I listen to them, how I've been able to articulate their views back to them and show that I really understand. And then they've donated because they want to see that on Beacon Hill. So that is how I'm fundraising for my campaign. Thank you.
Can you tell us your opinion on RCV, which is rank choice voting?
I was a politics major at Mount Holyoke, and I first learned about ranked choice voting 20 years ago. And I thought to myself, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could get that system implemented? What that would mean for our democracy and for people to be able to really have a choice in the top few candidates. This field that we have for the congressional race is an amazing field. And I do wish every single day that we did have ranked choice voting for this particular race, because I see the value in being able to rank folks as we sort of, decide, well, I think there's my top one, my top two, my top three. I think there's many that we would be really happy to have. And that's the value I see in ranked choice voting. I also am very supportive of automatic voter registration, really glad that that passed. Any opportunity we have to increase representation, to decrease corporate overrepresentation in our government, in our democracy, I think is a really good thing. Thank you.
I'm really happy we got this question. I have been on this train for about 5 years now. I love ranked choice voting, and in fact, if I wasn't running for this year right now, I'd be working on the campaign to have it in Massachusetts. There's going to be a ballot measure in 2020. Look out for it. So I love this system primarily because it just projects civility so much. It makes it so that way, not only do we have the opportunity to get rid of the spoiler effect entirely and allow third parties to have a real run, but it makes candidates more polite towards each other because they don't want to alienate the voters of their opponents because they're all working for that second and third vote. And it also makes it so the people are nicer to each other. You don't pick one hill to stand on and everyone else is idiots. You go and you say, well, you know, I have my candidate, but if I didn't have my candidate, who would I want? And who would I want after that? It encourages good and decent people to run. And it makes it so that way, you know, if you live somewhere that isn't as lucky to have, you know, nice, polite candidates like these, you can actually make it so that way there's a real, tangible reason to have civility in our politics. I so encourage you to go and donate to the ranked choice voting people.
So I'm actually a relative newcomer to ranked choice voting. I've learned about it in the past year or so. And from what I've seen and from what I've heard in speaking to the advocates of ranked choice voting, speaking with some of our congressional candidates who are standing outside this building right now, and just everybody else that I've interacted with, it's the right way to do things. I do know up in Maine that they did pass ranked choice voting, and to be able to pick not just one candidate that resonates with you, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 candidates that resonate with you. That to me shows power in numbers. It gets the corporate interests out of our politics, and it ensures that, as both Tammy and Christian said, good people run for office, because this is not an easy thing to do. To be out here every single day, to be out canvassing, knocking on doors, chatting with folks. There are a lot of great people out here who I support, and it breaks my heart that I can't support all of them, and I can't vote for all of them come September 4th.
It is so vitally important that you vote yes on 3. It's an incredibly confusing measure. Vote yes on 3. One thing that I didn't get to bring up during this is that I think it's incredibly important that we establish an independent redistricting process, because even the Democrats are very guilty of gerrymandering right now. Right now, in our district, we have about 1/4 of Chelmsford, because that was a consistently Republican district, and we took it and we carved it like a red turducken. And now it's consistently 4 Democratic districts. Now, I believe that it's good to elect Democrats, but it is wrong to disenfranchise people. And we need to have people on Beacon Hill who are willing to hold Democrats accountable when we don't hold ourselves to our own standards, and that is why I'm running. Thank you very much. I've been honored to speak at this forum.
I have been told by some that when I'm talking about the concerns of members of our community, that I shouldn't talk about it with so much emotion, and that I should focus on fact rather than sentiment. I've just been told that I've been too emotional in this race. It is true, I should talk probably a little bit more about my experience. After all, I have 2 master's degrees, 1 in social work and 1 in public health, and I'm working on my doctorate in public health, focused specifically on opioid policies to address the crisis that we're facing right now. But it's not only these experiences that I will bring to Beacon Hill as your legislator. I will bring so much more than that. I am a person who is an incredible listener. And I could give you a ton of ideas that I have for various policies in the environment and opioids, but I really want to hear your ideas, your stories, and be the voice of our constituents up on Beacon Hill. And I look forward to working with all of you. I hope to earn your vote in September. I'm Tammy Govea. Thank you.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters tonight for sponsoring this forum. With our democracy being attacked on so many different avenues, forums like this serve not only as a means to educate the electorate yourselves, but also to help safeguard our institution of voting. In closing, tonight you have heard from 2 great candidates. However, I am the only candidate that has 20 years of direct state government experience, meaning should I be fortunate enough to be elected, I can hit the ground running up on Beacon Hill. That experience plays a pivotal role in who best can be that voice for you up on Beacon Hill. And I believe that I can be that voice for you up on Beacon Hill. Please do not forget to vote on September 4th. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and have a wonderful evening.